Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, make it so. So before we go further, let me welcome you all to our Sunday morning talk. This morning, the topic will be a heart attack machine. And Cindy will read a little prologue as it was offered to you in the newsletter.
Okay. In his song, Desolation Row, Bob Dylan sings of strapping a heart attack machine across your shoulders. And it's a fact that about 900,000 Americans die each year of coronary disease. This morning, we'll use the heart attack machine as a metaphor for our everyday lives and how its deadly effects are lessened by our spiritual practice.
Most of us are afraid of this world we've made, with its yes and no's, and karma's blows, and temptation's parade. We say it's hard and mean, a heart attack machine, but it can't scare me. I'm sticking with the Atman, believing in the Atman, seeking for the Atman. No, it won't scare me. I'm sticking with the Atman, and I shall never die. This Kali Yuga's rough. Each day can be tough. Here's a homeless man in horrible pain. I think I've said enough. Oh yes, it's hard and mean, a heart attack machine, but it can't scare me. I'm sticking with the Atman, believing in the Atman, seeking for the Atman. No, it can't scare me. I'm sticking with the Atman, and I shall never die. Some folks are afraid to die. Maybe this is why they never heard these loving words as they were sighed for them. Oh, sure, it's hard and mean, a heart attack machine, but it can't scare you if you're sticking with the Atman, believing in the Atman, seeking for the Atman. No, it won't scare you if you're sticking with the Atman, and you will never die, and I shall never die. No, we shall never die. Oh, Amen. Now, of course, there will be death of the body. That's a given. Immortality of the body is not even a desirable situation. But that which is embodied will never die, does not die, has been here since the beginning of what we call time in the day of Brahma. Will be here until it is gathered together at the end of the day of Brahma and reduced again to its potential form, to be reintroduced after the night of Brahma. These are inconceivable things for us. We have no idea what's meant by billions of years. We can say the words, but we really don't know. So what is the solution? As it says in the song, it is seeking for the Atman, sticking with the Atman, believing in the Atman, seeking for the Atman. What is the Atman? The Atman is that which is embodied, that which seems to have taken name and form. In fact, that is just a kind of mythology, a kind of invention of our brains. Sure, it has a relative reality, as Adi Shankaracharya puts it. It's a superimposition. And otherwise, how could all of this be? And how could the great teachers, the avatars, the incarnations, such as Sri Ramakrishna, Rama, Christ, Krishna, and so on, how could they come? Why would they come? To rescue us from this delusion. So before we go ahead any further, is there any question as to what is meant by the heart attack machine? Is there any comment that you have or a question or concern that you have regarding your own relationship with what we might call the heart attack machine? Anything at all from anyone? Let's get this clear what we mean by heart attack machine before we go ahead.
Well, we haven't really talked about the heart attack machine yet, but it's just being entangled in all the hubbub of the world, and how, we come here and talk about these things, and because we're trying to disentangle ourselves, but because I think if we know anything at this point, we know that that is key, and our various spiritual practices that we have do that,
Yes, indeed.
or should be doing that.
That's exactly what is meant by, we'll show how our spiritual practices do in fact disentangle us.
But I will say something real quick, just because of talking about the Atman being, embodied in the name and form. I was thinking the other day about, when I was 5 years old, and that, I can think about that. I can have certain patterns of sense data we call memories about it, about myself as a 5-year-old. But that person, that 5-year-old child, doesn't exist anymore. And I was just thinking about this, and I thought, well, if she doesn't exist anymore, neither do I. I don't exist either, any more than she does. She did, but she doesn't. Because the Atman exists, who's been going on this embodied journey of Cindy Craven, whoever she is. But even right this minute, this second, I am in as much transition as she was. I'm not who I was when I got out of bed this morning. It's harder to see it when we're in the middle of it, but all you have to do is look back at different phases of your life and you realize I'm not, that person does not exist anymore.
Well recognized, dear. This is exactly what the Buddha was pointing to when a person talked about what was going to happen in the next moment. And the Buddha said, why are you concerned about this moment or the next? You are not the person you were a moment ago. And that is quite literally the case. So that 5-year-old or the person that you are now is something that arises, persists for whatever time it persists for, and passes away. And the more we're entangled with it or cling to it, the more we are separated from the reality of our being and vulnerable to the heart attack machine. So anyone else have any thoughts about the heart attack machine?
Yes, Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes,
I have a comment to make on this. Hopefully, there are lots of young people started very early these spiritual practices, which is wonderful. If we continue along with while we are earning a living, raising families and doing worldly duties and everything, if we continue our practices, hopefully we don't have to carry a machine, majority of us, I'm hoping. And then I'm sure everybody would like to go with one, go to sleep and never get up in the morning. That's my wish for that God, divine. When the time comes, go to bed and never get up in the morning. Heart attack is fine at that time, but don't want to carry the machines. I don't think anybody wants to carry the machines while living. That's my understanding. While we do all our duties, we can still continue to do everything. Continue to spare a little bit of time morning and evening to the spiritual practice. That would save, hopefully. That's my understanding of this heart attack mission. Thank you so much.
well, thank you, dear. Very well said, very articulate. Thank you. Anything else from anyone about the heart attack machine or your relationship to the idea or what it means to you, anything at all?
Brother Shankara, this is Sunil talking about the body and embodiment. It reminds me Maharshi Ramana, he had cancer on his left hand, just like Sri Ramakrishna. Krishna had cancer in his throat. So somebody asked Maharshi Ramana that, you have cancer and it must be paining you a lot. And his response was like, totally I can relate with body and embodiment was that, I see that there is some pain in this body, in this left hand. I can see that. So he was referring himself as a soul, as a conscious witness, that he can see that. But he said, I'm not affected by that. So just wanted to bring that point.
Yes. So the machine was there and operating, but he was not entangled or affected by his own assertion, which we can imagine is 100% authentic.
Yeah. Shankara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Tom.
We had a little technical difficulty. Could you just quickly say again what the heart attack machine is?
Well, that's what we're getting at.
Oh, okay. We're just
What is the heart attack machine?
okay. We missed the
The heart
first
attack machine is whatever it is that binds you to this sense of struggle, sense of limitation, Because in fact, as a spiritual being, you are not limited, you are not confined, you are eternal, you are changeless, you are blissful. But those things, this heart attack machine, as Dylan says, is strapped to your shoulders by your worldly concerns and duties. And so you fall under its weight to the point where, as was pointed out in the prologue, 900,000 people approximately die every year in the United States of coronary disease. It seems impossible, but that is the fact. Nearly 1 million people die of some form of coronary disease in the United States each year.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for asking the question. Anything else from anyone? All right. In the song, it says, if I'm sticking with the Atma, believing in the Atma, seeking for the Atma, it's then that I will recognize that I do not die. That which is does not die. It simply takes embodiment and then leaves that embodiment behind, which is thoroughly explained to us in chapter 2 and later in Bhagavad Gita, as well as any number of other scriptures. So what does it mean to stick with the Atma? As a spiritual aspirant, we're introduced to the idea that we are not the mind, we are not the body, we are not the senses, or any of the fruits of appearing to have those three things. So what do we do with that appearance? Well, if you're sticking with the Atman, you have a couple of choices depending on your spiritual path. You can simply ignore it. Which is the Jnani's way, the non-dualist's way. They'll simply say, I pay no attention to it. As Christ said, be a passerby. Just pay no attention to it. This is part of Christ's non-dual teachings. Be a passerby. Or you can simply say, all right, I'm involved with it, but I discriminate between the reality of what I truly am and the unreality or relative reality of what I appear to be. And I never hold on to anything that is of that relative reality. That is sticking with the Atma. And the only way to make that work is to believe in the Atman. We can believe in the Atman if we come to some understanding of what that is. And the only way that I know of, and the only way that we're taught by our teachers from this lineage, is to experience the Atman through our spiritual practices. The mind will constantly react to its environment by chattering away, generating thoughts. By environment, what do I mean? The Maya that we're surrounded with, this phenomenal universe, and the gunas that produce it. They touch on the mental impressions that are in our active subconscious and latent subconscious. These gunas touch on those things and generate what appear to be our thoughts and feelings and perceptions. In fact, they are simply an artifact of their being those things. So if we believe in the Atman by experiencing it, we sink below, so to speak. We sink below all of this activity of the mind and its desire to hold our attention. It believes that it is very competent in taking care of us. And it has reason to think that. It has, if we're to believe in reincarnation, it has seen us through many, taking many forms, even human form. So it has a right to say, I know what I'm doing, leave me be. But you say, no, I'm not content with the limitation of letting you be. I sense that there is something beyond. So this is believing in the Atman. This belief that there's something beyond based on your having touched it, your having come to it. So I'm sticking with the Atman, believing in the Atman, and then seeking for the Atman. Now, what do we mean when we say we're seeking for something? We're seeking for evidence of its existence. What are we told are the evidence of the Atman's existence? Pure happiness, pure bliss, pure consciousness, pure. That is to say, undiluted, uninflected. And we catch glimpses of this in the beginning. And they're overwhelmingly beautiful when we catch these glimpses. We call them epiphanies or peak experiences or whatever it is that we call them. But as Winston Churchill remarked, many people stumble over the truth and then get up and walk on as if nothing had happened. Many people stumble over the truth and then get up and walk on as if nothing had happened. We must not let that happen to us. When we have these experiences, we have to say, there's the evidence I'm seeking. There's what it means for me to seek and find evidence of the Atman, this truth of my being. So why bother? Why go to all these troubles to do this? So that we are not vulnerable to the heart attack machine. Because the heart attack machine will kill you. The heart attack machine will ultimately drain you of all of your energy, all of your life force, and leave you a lifeless hulk. So before we go on beyond that thought, now anything more from you about your relationship to any of these ideas. What is it that this gives rise to in you? What does it give rise to in you when these things are talked about? If you care to share with us. Anything at all from it.
This is Haima again, Brother Shankara. I want to share something, my perspective. Atman is permanent. The spirit continues to live, the consciousness. The body is not permanent. We learned through Upanishads and great, your teachings and great sages' teachings. We learned that body, and we know that too. Body, spirit, it's like a wearing clothes and then dropping them and then going to different body. My mom always used to say that. Death is like you drop the clothes and then the spirit goes and enters into different body. You have said that many times too. So the spirit continues. It's there, but the body becomes ashes for some religions, and some religions it's buried underneath the soil, and that's where it is. So, but the spirit continues to live. We think of our elders and forefathers more after they die, all the good things they have done. We never remember the bad ones. We forgive them. We think of all the great stuff that they have taught us, and that continues to live longer generations. It just continues to go from one spirit to another spirit. So that is permanent. That's what we all learned in this congregation and through Upanishads and through great sages. So that is the one we need to focus on. The one, one way is by doing our practices, realizing ourself by removing the layers to reach the consciousness, all the ego layers and whatever we call the negative layers that are covered our consciousness. So finally we reach the consciousness. That's where the true bliss is. True bliss is when we find ourselves. Until then, we are temporarily eating gulab jam, rasgulla, and find temporary happiness. And then when you can't eat, and then you're miserable. So, but that was not taught to us when we were growing up. They did say some things relate to, I have always heard, when we die, it's like taking a new garment. So our soul goes into new garment. I always heard that all my life. And if you do good deeds in this life, you don't have to come back again, reincarnate in the next life. That also I heard when I was growing up, which is what Upanishads is teaching us. Exactly. So that is the Atman, permanent, the consciousness. We need to find that consciousness by just doing few minutes in the morning, few minutes in the evening, by following Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Yama, Niyama, all these things. That's my perspective. Thank you so much.
Well, yes, and thank you so much. Yes, a few minutes in the morning, a few minutes in the evening. But those are to orient us so that our focus remains on the Atman rather than on the heart attack machine throughout the whole of the day and night.
Right.
The few minutes in the morning and the few minutes in the evening are a centering technique, a centering tactic to get us centered so that we're not knocked sideways by our experience of the heart attack machine. But you're absolutely right. As far as the body goes, as Sri Krishna points out so eloquently to Arjuna in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, the body is just a garment. When we wear it out, we cast it aside. In a folk saying that was popular with my grandparents, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. This is the fate of the body. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And so where will we focus our attention? If we're sticking with the Atman, believing in the Atman, and then actively seeking for evidence of the Atman in our own existence, then we move beyond the limitations. The limitations will eternally be there as long as there is embodiment. I mean, the capacity of this body to do and be as a body is not going to change. I mean, it could get better if I exercise and if I, eat right and all those things. You can make marginal differences in how well the body performs, but you aren't going to make wholesale changes. A yogi can, but that's probably not a profitable way to spend your time, as the Swamis tell us. Someone who follows the powers section of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So, to follow the words of this song, many people are afraid to die. Maybe the reason why is they never heard these loving words as they were signed for them, as they were signed for them. Well, sure, it's hardened me, a heart attack machine. But it can't scare you if you're sticking with the Atman, seeking for the Atman, believing in the Atman. And if it can't scare you, if it doesn't scare you, then you don't get off center. Then you can see clearly as each moment arises what's in that moment. And there are at least 3 levels to each moment. There's the everyday waking awareness that we're all so achingly familiar with. This moment comes and it has its duties in it. We have to do this, we have to cook some food, we have to eat some food, we have to go to the bathroom, we have to clean up the floor when we spilled something. All of these things. That's the one level. The next level is the psychic level. At the psychic level, the level of our thoughts, there's all our reactions, our immediate reactions to what's going on. And it's positive reactions and it's negative reactions and it's we're having some fun or we're not having some fun. And then there's the spiritual level. If we are allowing our attention, as a matter of fact, if we are working to establish our attention at that spiritual level and see everything from there, then we see all of these limitations, all of these actions that make up the heart attack machine as simply something that comes and goes and will come, this body will come to an end, inevitably, as Jaime pointed out, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And so we'll be finished with this embodiment. Now, she mentioned good deeds as a way to make it unnecessary to take another embodiment. Well, that's a convenient shorthand, good deeds. But it's far more complex than that, as Krishna points out in the Gita. You not only have to do good deeds, but you have to not own either the doing of the good deeds or their results. If you do, then the karma attaches itself to the embodiment, not to you, not to the Atman, but it attaches itself to the embodiment and generates the desire for a new one when this one falls down. So Sri Krishna says, you not only must do good deeds, but you must release their effects. You must release the doing of them themselves, the actions themselves, and their results. And the best thing to do, as he says, is to offer them sacramentally to me, to Krishna, to the divine being. What is a sacrament? A sacrament is the outward manifestation of inward grace. So when you are recognizing the inward grace of what it is that you're doing and offering, and you offer that to the divine being, then you are relieved of its karmic consequences. You're not generating any new karma. And that's how you will make it unnecessary to take another human birth. Now, there are reasons, and we see this among many saints, there are reasons for wanting to take another human birth. Either because you want to have a loving, eternal relationship, not go away from the conscious human relationship, loving relationship. This is Mirabai's story. Mirabai has this ecstatic relationship with Krishna and says, don't give me liberation. Don't give me those words that will give me liberation. Let me remain again and again as the bride of Krishna. Now, of course, this is also, there's this idea among some of the Catholic nuns. Some of the orders actually have a wedding ring in which they are wedded to Lord Jesus Christ. They are the brides of Christ. And it's a beautiful thing. And so they have that romantic relationship as well as all of the other relationships. But most of us won't go that far. We will want to have a relationship with the divine being. Most of us. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna says there are these different attitudes to take. He calls them bhavas. The most common is the servant. I am the servant of the divine being. And what is the wonder of being a servant? The servant doesn't have to worry about being fed or clothed or sheltered. All of that is taken care of for a diligent and useful servant. They're given clothing to wear, food to eat, they're given shelter, and even beyond that which delights. So this is a way to avoid the heart attack machine, is to be a servant of the divine, or to be a child of the divine. This was Sri Ramakrishna's relationship with the divine in the form of Mother Kali. He saw himself as her child. No ifs, ands, or buts. I am the child of Kali. So that's another. And there are these other attitudes. You can see yourself as the parent, or even, as I said, the most comprehensive of these is this romantic relationship, this Madhura, the sweet attitude of Mirabai and the brides of Christ. So it's just up to you if you decide you wish to have a relationship with the divine, so that you experience it not only as a personal thing, the Atman as a personal aspect, but it's grander, the Maha-Atman, the Saguna Atman, the Atman with all the attributes of the divine being. That truly frees you from the heart attack machine, when your identification is totally with that. I mean, that which is, those aspects of the heart attack machine will arise. You will deal with them and they will pass away. Sometimes it'll be painful. Sometimes it'll even be fun. But it'll just be that, something that arises, persists for a time and passes away. Is everyone content with this idea of things that arise, persist for a while and pass away? Do you see it that way? And if not, how do you see it? Does this all make perfect sense to you? Or is there something missing or something that you've added to this that you can share with us?
Yeah, Brother Shankara, Pranam.
Yes.
Shekhar. Yeah, once you offered that how I experience, I can share with you that. See, when you experience, I'm trying to get into Atman logically. It is totally making sense when I'm saying a pain. Are you experiencing pain? Yes, that means you are not pain. You are the experiencer. You are the knower. So that makes sense. That is logical. But when I do say meditation or some calm, then I am going through my mind to say, hey, I'm not the pain. I'm the experiencer. I'm the Atman. So I'm different from this body, different from this mind, different from this. But that is the mind is actually a bridge for me to go to that stage. It's not when I'm starting my say meditation, then I am taking the help of my mind to remind it that, hey, I'm not you. I am beyond you. So mind is a bridge for me to go from this state to that Brahman, realizing Brahman stage. Is that right?
Yes, I really like the metaphor of a bridge. You know, we can even, you know, the bridge that leads from here to the world beyond life, the land of no longer embodiment, is sometimes called the Rainbow Bridge. And this metaphor that you're using is parallel to that. Yes, indeed, the mind is a bridge. And it must be logical. It cannot contradict logic. It must be logical.
Mm-hmm.
And so we pursue the logic until we get to that point where it is not illogical, but simply beyond logic. I mean, that which is infinite, changeless, eternal. There is no logic to that. I mean, inherently, there's a logic to the fact that it must be so. But that what occurs there is not necessarily commonsensical. This is why it's called Maya or Mahamaya. it will delude us. It will be, this is why we have to be careful about what it is that we're seeing and how we're seeing it. Because Maya is meant to entangle and delude us. It's said so in the Upanishads. And so we watch our mind, we watch our awareness. Where is it going? Why is it going there? What's it doing? All of these things. How are we doing for time, by the way?
Say it again.
13 more minutes.
How many?
13 minutes more.
13 minutes more?
Yes, yes.
Very good, very good. Okay. So let's begin to wrap up. The world as it exists for us at the end of the Kali Yuga, we're told this is the end of the Kali Yuga. Reliably, we're told this by Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Vivekananda, and so on. This is the end of the Kali Yuga, is a dark, complicated, unpleasant time. It is well and truly a heart attack machine, which is why Bob Dylan wrote of it in his song Desolation Row. If you listen to that song, it is about this dark time. If you're going to write to me, he says, don't send me any letters. No, not unless you send them from Desolation Row. Not unless you recognize the truth of what's going on here. So this is a dark, we don't have to look very far. Even here in Atlanta, 1 out of 4 children goes to bed hungry. People are marginalized by the economy, by any number of things, by their color, by their immigrant status, all kinds of reasons. But if we then go beyond and look at what's going on in the world as a whole, it's overwhelmingly dark. Of course, there's beautiful and wonderful things happening as well in science and medicine and so on and so forth. All these things are there also. But the preponderant energy, the predominating energy right now is one of transformation. We can say destruction and reconstitution. So much is being destroyed. Literally, physically being destroyed by bombs and bullets and all kinds of huge unpleasantness. And even for those people who aren't in an active war zone, there are people, displaced migrants, nowhere to go, no one wants them. It's a sad and terrible world in so many ways right now. So our only refuge is to do what we can, the good deeds that Haima mentioned. We can do whatever we can. Give money wherever we can. The Atlanta Community Food Bank can use every dollar that you send. For every dollar that you send, they provide what is necessary to feed people 4 meals. They don't serve the meals themselves. They give the materials to the food banks and other places that do serve the meals. But for every dollar that you give them, the Atlanta Community Food Bank provides the necessary for 4 meals. That's a remarkable thing. And of course, there's all kinds of other NGOs, 501c3s, service organizations to which you can give money for causes that appeal to you, whether it be the humane treatment of animals or the humane treatment of human beings. There's all kinds of things that we can do. So yes, we can do the good deeds. But most importantly, we do the good deeds with the idea that we are not the doer. We are the instrument for this. And so the good deeds and are that which they are meant to counter are the heart attack machine, but we are not that. Then we are free to live in bliss and harmony with ourselves and with other people of like mind, holy company, as we are sharing this morning, or this afternoon now, it's getting close to this afternoon. So this is our opportunity, and this is avoiding the consequences of the heart attack machine by focusing on the truth of our being, which we can use the word Atman or soul or just truth of our being. Anything else from anyone about any of that, anything that we've discussed, anything that's been said by myself or by others?
Brother Shankar,
Yes, dear.
when Swami Satyamayananda was here for the retreat, during the course of the retreat, I don't know if anybody else who's attending today remembers or caught this, but he made a statement that was kind of surprising, that sleeping when you dying when you're sleeping is not the best way to die. And somebody asked him, but the answer didn't happen. Like, I think something else caught his attention, and I did not have a chance to ask him one-on-one, because for most of us, that is a desirable way to go, is peacefully go away and sleep. So it kind of
Yeah,
took
well,
me
I
by
was thinking about that this morning too. He was saying you've got to be alert and awake. And yeah, I was thinking about that too.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about it, my own manana, and one thing is, I think there is a portion in Gita where Lord Krishna says that whatever your thoughts are at the last minute will be what fructify. And not being either a Sanskrit scholar or a Gita scholar, I don't know if that's meant to be taken literally or it means something else. But what I was thinking was this whole spiritual journey, whether it's the defined times of japa meditation we do, or the application of the teachings of spiritual philosophy in our day-to-day life, moment to moment, is to get us to the point where hopefully when we leave the body in a state of some sort of alertness, the thought of Atman or God will become so natural that it doesn't, at that point, it just takes you there, because you're automatically, without making an effort, the thought of God comes at that point. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Makes perfect sense, and you're absolutely right. The idea is not, it's not best to die when you're asleep. It could be fine. It just depends on your relationship with the divine, what'll happen when you're asleep and who comes to get you and so on. But far better to die, to leave the body, which is dying is not, it's the body that goes. You don't die. So you leave the body behind, and it's best to leave the body in this state of waking awareness, full alertness, as you put it. And as Krishna points out in the Gita, and is pointed out elsewhere, the more you think about the truth, the more the truth will be there when the last moment comes. Fear will not displace your attention onto fear. The fear will be there. The body is not content to die. So there will be fear. But it will not displace you, will not uncenter you. So this is what we're told, that you will be centered and you will be, and at that point, we're told time and again, something will come for you. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. This is the old spiritual. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Or band of angels, come for me. Come, stand, band of angels, come and around me stand. Angels, come and around me stand. Bear me away on your snow white wings to my immortal home. So one wants to be aware of the chariot or the angels. And of course, there are, because of the kind of things that are going on now in hospice and ICUs and so on, there are books being published about the experience of people who do exactly that. The people that never had an experience of a deep spiritual experience in their lives, suddenly they're talking with angels that are standing around their bed. These are the stories we're being told.
The only question that still kind of nags my mind, for lack of a better word, is what happens to people who, for example, with dementia or Alzheimer's, who have a fall. It happened to my mother-in-law. She was in so much pain that hospice kept her round the clock on pain meds. So the moment she passed away, it may not have been her choice, but she was not in the state of alertness, I am guessing. So in those situations, their practice still becomes effective, is something that I wonder about.
Your heart, I don't know the answer to your question, but if they have had a spiritual practice, one can imagine that it will bear fruit at the end. There's every reason for it to, and no reason for it not to. The Lord and Divine Mother are gracious. They are gracious. They are full of love for us. We are their children, and they wish to care for us. And it's we who get in their way. It's the unpleasantness in the world is not caused by the divine. It's caused by human beings being errant in their behavior. And so we just hope for the best for anyone who dies in the circumstances that you talked about. But I can't imagine if they've had a spiritual practice that it will bear fruit at the
Hey,
end.
Shankara, can you hear me?
Yes,
It's 12 o'clock.
Alexander is here and has a question.
Hello, Alexander.
Good morning. I didn't want to jump in and interrupt. I loved the discussion that was happening. one of the things that I'm learning in my spiritual practice is that there's a lot of things that seem to contradict each other. There are a lot of hierarchies that are put in place that are then pulled apart later. And that the truth is compassion and joy. But as a human, I'm very interested in what you were speaking about earlier and learning more about the categorizations that you spoke of. I think that you said they were called bhavas.
Bhavas, yes, attitudes. It's a Sanskrit word that means attitude or way of being with.
Gotcha. Where can I learn more about those? That
In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you can look it up in the index.
okay, BHAVAS.
BHAB or S as plural, yes, Bhavas. And he speaks of 5. There are more, but he speaks of 5 that he highly recommends, and they integrate the ones that he most strongly recommends, which are the servant and the child, most strongly integrate with the spiritual practice that he so strongly recommends for this time, and that is bhakti yoga or devotional yoga.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a comment about what Swayam was asking about and talking about, and not directly, but I didn't hear the Swami talking about that, and of course, I think we would all like to die in a certain way, but the thing is, most of us don't. And I think there's too much of an emphasis. It's great in your practice and day-to-day living and interactions to think of God or to think of, your spiritual outlook. But, there's almost too much emphasis on thinking of God when in fact you are a thought of God. And I have to say, no disrespect to the Swami or any other people who think this, but to say something that causes other people to experience fear and anxiety over dying, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, it's wrong. It's just wrong. My grandfather lived to be 94 and he died just horrified and so unhappy that I was going to go to hell because I wasn't a born again Christian. And, it made me feel so bad that after the fact, I almost wished I had lied to him. And to me, it's similar. I mean, if you're saying, well, if you don't die alert and chanting the name of God, you're not going to go to hell, but you're not going to, what?
That isn't what was said there, and it certainly is not true. We just don't know what will happen. We don't know.
Then why say there's a good way to die and a not good way to die? And if you don't die in the right way, you're not going to go up as high as you would hope to, because that's what it seems to be saying.
Well, I certainly didn't say that and didn't mean
No,
that.
you didn't. I'm not talking about you.
I think the only thing he was meaning was that it's better to exit through the head in a conscious state than in a drugged or unconscious state. I think that's the only thing he was meaning.
But why, Bhagwan Das? What is your understanding?
Well, I mean, that's a generally accepted principle of yoga. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I'm just saying that that's the Patanjali type answer.
Yes, it is Patanjali's answer. That's true.
But I mean, my whole thing is I would focus on why are you so afraid of it? If you've done the work and are like what brother's saying, the heart attack machine, you have to, where is all this fear of dying coming from? You need to examine that, I think. See where you're stuck.
It's the body that's afraid. is the spirit is never afraid. The spirit doesn't know fear.
I think we all have a fear of
No fear.
a long drawn out death that's unpleasant. You know, I mean, that's a natural thing. But also, you know, our spiritual practice is to help us curtail that fear.
Amen.
I agree. That's why I think it's a problem for, people who are seen as more learned than we might be, causing anxiety. I mean, instead of focusing on what you're talking about, what we're talking about, I'm sorry, I have a problem with it. I'll shut up.
Well, it's just unavoidable as an incarnated being that we suffer that.
No, I think.
Hello, namaste.
I think, Elizabeth, we have got a solution in our Indian culture that when we know one will be dying soon, we start chanting the sloka, Chaitanya sloka, Bhagavan sloka, so that the person we know that he or she will be dying in few minutes, it goes into her. So we can help in that way. Those tradition is now dying. Particularly in this Western, I don't know anybody doing that, but in my childhood, I have seen that when a elderly person dying, people are chanting, all bhajan, kirtan, they are doing, so that we can help them. If we do that, we can help that person who is in dementia or who is to get into that in his or her mind. I think that is a route for all of us to do that.
Yes, and that is a very, very noble thing that is done. And it's also done in Orthodox Judaism. When it's known that people are dying, a group of 10, at least 10 people are gathered, which is called a Shiva. And they begin to chant the Hebrew, we would call them shlokas. They're verses having to do with life and death and dying. And that this goes on for days after the person has actually left the body. They stay with the body and continue to do these rituals. So there's a lot of this kind of very, very concentrated attempt to make sure that people have the best transition. And since we really don't know what is on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge, it's best for us just to do the best we can with our relationship to the world and its heart attack machine here and now. That's the best we can do. And so the assertion today was, if you are focused on the truth of your being as the Atman, sticking with the Atman, believing in the Atman, seeking for the Atman, that you will live better in every sense of the word than you would have otherwise. It doesn't mean you're going to live without pain and suffering. It doesn't mean that there won't be times of trial and tribulation, but it will be better. You will be better, more centered, more reliably yourself than you would have been otherwise. And I'm going to let that be my final word.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I think again, coming to this act of surrendering to the I don't know and deepening the faith in Paramatman, Atman, and Ishvara, that they are not out to give us trouble, or we are not out to give ourselves trouble, and that whatever happens, it's going to be all right. And surrendering to that, I think, is a good way to kind of be.
Amen.
Can I say something?
Please, dear.
So I have no idea what happens after death. It'll be a big surprise if something happens, or I think it's possible we just cease to exist and that's it. And that's not really a problem. It really, in some of the, when I think of my freer states, it seems like I'm dying every moment and being reborn. You know, everything's arising and passing away, and that includes me, you know, as I constantly, you know, this moment, die and pass away, die and pass, or die and be reborn, be reborn. That's what it feels like. And what's the big deal if one of the times I don't get reborn? I just cease to exist. You know, you can look at it as the glass half empty or half full. Isn't it wonderful that any of us got born in the first place and that we're here? You know, isn't that just fantastic? And with an attitude of gratitude for this existence, then sometimes the existence may just end, you know, and that's fine too. You know, I was here for a while, it was incredibly beautiful, and then I ceased to exist. Or maybe there's something after death. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the subject.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Namaste. I got something to say. This is Shimoyi. Can I say something?
Yes, please, dear.
Namaste, everybody. So, you know, I got a few thoughts. I'm trying to make them real fast. So, you know, I was thinking about this last night because, you know, I'm recovering from COVID and I have, you know, heading into a second back surgery and a lot of pain, a lot of problems. But it dawned to me last night, you know, I bowed to Ramakrishna and God and I say, you know, lead me from unreal to real, lead me from darkness to light, you know, asking basically for liberation, you know. But the minute that you get a little heart pain or some kind of pain, you call the ambulance, you know. So, I mean, which one is it, you know? Uh, of course, you were talking about this heart attack backpack, and I'm thinking inside this backpack is, you know, all my attachments and all my wrong identifications with the body. And I'm carrying that, you know, as a human being. And like I said, I'm saying something out of my mouth, but I mean, the body identification can be so strong that, of course, you know, even though I'm asking for liberation, then I don't want to go. So that to me is a little bit of my struggle, we'll say, you know. There is that book from Thich Nhat Hanh that say, No Death, No Fear. It's a really amazing book. I suggest everybody can, you know, glance through it. Basically, you know, who dies? Nobody dies, you know. And then the last thing is like Swami Yogananda, you know, was married but celibate, and he was having a struggle with loss, and he asked the master, I mean, how I get rid of this? And he told him, go chant the name of Hari. But he kind of didn't believe him. And then there was a hatha yogi in town, and he thought, you know, maybe he learned some postures or some breathing to get rid of this loss problem. And so he went to see him. And then Ramakrishna showed up and picked him up, basically. I said, come on, what are you doing here? And then he said, and I'll quote, he's like, why do you go there? Don't go there anymore. If you learn and practice those techniques of Hatha Yoga, your mind will dwell on the body, will never turns towards God. And that resonates with me because this backpack is full of our attachments and everything. So, you know, we have to use our teachings and our discrimination all the time to combat these fears of death, to know that no death, no fear, you know. And that's all, you know, that I put together from this class today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and very articulate as usual. And thanks for bringing up Thich Nhat Hanh. Of course, he is someone for us to bow the head to and listen to carefully when he speaks, because there's every reason to think he's an illumined soul. Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. Well, this certainly was just what we could hope to have happened from introducing this subject of the heart attack machine.
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
John Gano, I just wanted to make one comment on all I've listened to. And the problems with all the fears, and for me, it comes down to the identification with what you are. If you're identifying that you're a body mind, you will have the fears. If you're identifying when that shift occurs and you identify yourself as being spirit, all of that becomes irrelevant. But that's it.
Well, very well said. And that is the whole thesis of that little song about sticking with the Atma. Mm-hmm. You're right. So thank you, John. Anything else before we wind it up? Well, very good. The next opportunity we'll have to be together is on Tuesday for the class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. The next opportunity after that is Wednesday, where we're studying Realizing God. And then on this coming Saturday, I believe we're going to take up the book Sermon on the Mount according to Vedanta. And what next the Sunday's topic is, I don't know yet. Please be mindful that Swami Yogatmananda will be here. I believe the dates are March 2nd and 3rd. If you want to be in the presence of a saintly personality, don't miss the opportunity if you can possibly be here in his physical presence or even in his Zoom presence. Don't miss the opportunity to be with Swami Yogatmananda. Any final thought or concern or question from anyone? All right.
Thank you so much, Shankara.
Well, thank you, dears. As always, this is so good to have been with you. The congregation is so dear, so dear. We're so good with one another. And so much love. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may the divine being as introduced to us as the Mother, Father, God at the opening prayer for these sessions, may we be aware that we are secure in that Mother, Father, God's loving and protective embrace. May you all be well and in bright spirits. Until the next time we meet, much love for each and every one of you and for the congregation as a living being, holy company, all caps. Until next time, dears.
He's trying to close.